Tell my wife I love her.
For country.
I know what my husband's fighting for, and that's why I can smile.
For family.
Daddy, what is a war?
For each other.
Men are so young. I look at them, see our boys.
Mel Gibson.
I will leave no one behind.
We Were Soldiers. Rated R. Starts Friday, March 1st.
You know, I'm starting to think Randall Wallace was kind of a one-trick pony with Braveheart, because everything he's done since then has either not been that good or has just been lackluster in particular. And this is one of those films that's definitely that. It's a telling of the 1st Battalion, 2nd Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division's battle against overwhelming odds in the La Drang Valley of Vietnam in 1965. Seen through the eyes of the battalion's commander, played by Mel Gibson, we see him take command of the battalion and its preparations to go into Vietnam. We also see how the French had years earlier been defeated in the same area. The battle was the first major engagement between the U.S. and the NVA forces in South Vietnam, and showed the use of helicopters as mobility providers and assault support aircrafts. Yeah, this movie's not that great. I mean, it's got a really strong cast in it. I mean, Gibson, Madeline Stowe, Greg Kinnear, Sam Elliott, Chris Klein, Kerry Russell, Barry Pepper. I mean, a good, solid cast overall. And a writer who won an Oscar for writing Braveheart. But like I said, this is one of those movies where you really look at it and think that, yeah, this was definitely a one-trick pony for this guy, because everything he's done since then has either not been great or has been kind of a letdown. And this is one of those ones that is definitely very much a letdown of a movie, because, you know, we had movies like Heart's War, and then also we had another one, Beyond Enemy Lines. We had all these movies coming out, war movies, that I guess we're trying to copy the success of Pearl Harbor, because Pearl Harbor was a success when it came out, despite the fact that it's a terrible movie. But Black Hawk Down was probably the best overall war movie we got around this time, and this, it's just a boring movie, man. Mel Gibson shows he's got range as an actor, but man, watching this for over 2.5 hours really strains on you pretty quickly. And if there isn't an interesting story to watch with this, then why am I even watching the film to begin with? And there's definitely not a story here that's enough to carry the weight of the film overall. It's based off of a book of the same name, which I've never read before, so I can't really say what the differences are. But supposedly there are a lot of differences according to what I see here through Wikipedia. But other than that, though, yeah, the movie just really, it really doesn't work as well as I think it wants to. I mean, Black Hawk Down, I think, made this work the best out of all the war movies we were getting around this time period. But this was just laying it on way too thick, and it really hurts in the long run when it's all said and done. So that's We Were Soldiers. So let's go ahead and take a look at the last one we have here, and that is Josh Hartnett in the comedy 40 Days and 40 Nights.
It goes against science. You want to be the guy going against science?
It begins. Hold on. The greatest challenge the world will ever witness.
No sex for 40 days.
You won't last a week. You think you can go 40 days?
I might go the distance.
I like this.
How long could you last?
You could slam that door in my face if you want, but I'll just be on the other side, even hotter.
40 days and 40 nights.
Slam it!
Rated R.
Special sneak preview Saturday.
So obviously you could figure out what the premise of this movie is right from that, but basically Josh Hartnett is playing a San Francisco web designer who has chosen to abstain from any sexual contact for the duration of Lent. Of course, Lent being the event where you take the 40 days and do something that you usually do and just not do it. And so for Josh Hartnett, it's basically no sexual contact, no masturbation, no kissing, nothing. And this could have made for an interesting movie. It's got a good director behind it, Michael Lehman, who directed Heathers, and they did some pretty underrated films, Airheads, The Truth About Cats and Dogs. But yeah, this movie really gets uncomfortable at times, and even with the people behind Bridget Jones's Diary to give it that classier look to it, like, you know, the working title films, when you see their names, like Notting Hill, Bridget Jones's Diary, Love Actually, you think that, but yeah, even if you put those in there, this is still kind of a concept that should be pretty easy to put together. It gets really iffy, and I mean extremely iffy, especially towards the end, which we'll get to in just a second. But from the beginning, it starts off kind of interesting. It starts off kind of amusing and fun, but then as the movie goes on, it's basically just, it just gets uncomfortable, especially when he gets to the last day and his ex-girlfriend basically just rapes him in order for him to just not be able to go through the 40 days of Lent thing. It's just like, dude, it's just like, like, there's going dark, and then there's just being unnecessarily dark. And I know this guy did Heathers, but Heathers was at least clever with its dark comedy. This just feels like they had to do it because he can't go for all 40 days, because then it wouldn't be interesting to the story. And whoever says that is completely untrue. But, I mean, it's hard to make date rape funny. I mean, we've had movies that try to do this. I mean, Observer Report's one of the big examples of that. But when you get down to it, nothing about rape is funny. I mean, no matter how hard you try to make it funny, it's just not going to work out unless you have a solid purpose for making it funny. And this movie sadly does not. It really just, it takes any of the fun and the excitement about this movie and just throws it out the window pretty quickly. And this is a movie that's not that long. It's only about an hour and a half long, but even by then, when that moment happens, it just feels like you're just so uncomfortable with how they present this. And you figure, why does Josh Hartnett hang around with these people anyway? Like it's one of those moments where you look at it just like, why did you have these friends with you that would be this so like, it gets unnerving, and it ruins a lot of the ebb and flow of the movie, it ruins a lot of the fun factors of the movie, but it just gets really old really, really quickly, and it ends up not being funny. It ends up going the same, romantic comedy tropes we've seen done over and over again, and has to throw that dark level of comedy, which could be fine if it was written if they had better material to work with here, but in this movie, it's just kind of like, no, we're just throwing it in there because we have to do it. This is the guy that directed Heathers, and unfortunately, he's not the writer on this movie. So, yeah, I don't know. To me, personally, it just didn't work out for me. It got really uncomfortable by the end of it, and just ruined kind of what I was liking about the movie from the beginning, which the movie does start off strong, but once it gets to that point where it gets to those moments where they're just forcing any way for this guy to not have the thing is to have him break his code that he's been working on throughout the course of the movie, that's when it just really starts to lose me right from the get-go. And it's just not a fun movie when it's all said and done. It's a real letdown when you think about it on a number of different levels. So, yeah, kind of avoid this one like the plague. Starts off strong, but just dips down in quality pretty quickly. So, that is 40 Days and 40 Nights.
We gotta get out of here! What's going on? The moon's breaking up. That's impossible.
In 2 days,
Why have you traveled through time?
I have a question answered. Unlock your imagination. Experience the magic. Time travel. Discover the mystery.
How much closer? I don't like it.
And get ready for the greatest adventure through all time. The Time Machine. Rated PG-13. Starts this Friday.
So as I said, this is based off of H.G. Wells' classic novel, where you have scientist and inventor Alexander Hartigan, played by Guy Pearce. Is it Guy? Okay, it is Guy Pearce. I thought for a second it was Guy Ritchie, but no, it's Guy Pearce. He's determined to prove that time travel is possible. His determination is turned to desperation from a personal tragedy that now drives him wanting to change the past. Testing his theories with the time machine and his own invention, Hartigan is hurtled 800,000 years into the future, where he discovers that mankind has divided into the hunter and the hunted. And there is so much potential in this movie, but the film, if you've seen the movie, it gets pretty ridiculous pretty damn quick. Let's talk about that personal tragedy, because in the beginning of the movie, Guy Pearce's character gets engaged to Sienna Guillory, who you may know from the second Resident Evil movie. But so she gets shot the first time around, and so he basically decides, I'm going to do this with a time machine. I'm going to build a time machine, go back in time, and save her. And she does save her, but then as soon as she saves her, she literally gets run over by a horse. And it's supposed to be this dramatic moment, but I'm sorry, if you watch the clip in this movie where she gets run over by the horse, it is done so hilariously bad. I could not believe it. Like, I've watched this. It's the first time I ever saw this was actually when Film Brain did Bad Movie Beatdown's review of this, and he showed that scene. I thought, no, there's no way that could be a real scene. But nope, a scene that's supposed to be so tragic and so just downright depressing, he gets killed. It becomes extremely hilarious when you realize that this woman just died, and we just showed her a dummy literally falling to the ground. And, like, how can you not laugh at that? And the funny thing about it is that and the problems with this movie can be seen right from the get-go, because shortly after that, Alexander realizes that every time he tries to save Emma, it will result in her death through other circumstances. Let me point out here that in this movie, he's only done it one other time. So, you know, it would be nice if we got to see the many times that he did try to do it, you know, if he tried to do it more than once. But no, they show it happening one time, and we're supposed to just accept that no matter what happens, she's going to die no matter what. And, yeah. Let that be the tone for the rest of the movie, because, man, this movie likes to change the plot whenever it needs to, because it just has to, because this movie is one of those films where, yeah, Simon Wells, who you know mostly as an animation director, he's done a lot of stuff for, you know, An American Tale, 5 Goes West, We're Back at Dinosaur Story, Balto, The Prince of Egypt, great animation director. His last film he directed was Mars Needs Moms, which I don't want to say it's his fault completely, because that was just a movie that was just dead on arrival, but ever since The Prince of Egypt, he fell off big time, and it's a shame, because the guy does have a lot of good animation credits to his name, and I think they only got him because he's the great-grandson of H.G. Wells. If I remember correctly, that's what I read. But yeah, the movie just gets out of hand really quickly, and because of this, because Simon Wells had never attempted live action before, he was basically suffering from extreme exhaustion, and Gore Verbinski had to come in and actually finish the last couple days of shooting, which basically puts I know I keep saying basically, someone got on me for saying that, but I'm sorry, man, this is off-the-cuff stuff, and I have to say that to talk about what I'm doing here. Yeah, I say it a lot, but yeah, that's just kind of my thing. I've been trying to hold it down for a little bit, but as you can see, it's just kind of off-the-cuff stuff here. But, so Gore Verbinski had to come in and finish the movie, and because of that, the tone of the movie changes in the final 30 minutes of the movie. It goes from being a science fiction film to an action movie, and Guy Pearce's character essentially becomes an action hero in this for no reason whatsoever. And the way the movie changes what the time machine could do, you know, what the time machine is capable of to fix this plot that they have, this plot change they have going on here, it just ruins the ebb and flow of the movie big time. But the film itself is just a mess on so many levels. Now, that's not to say that everything about this movie is bad. There are some brief flashes of promise here. Like, you have Jeremy Irons as the Morlock with some pretty good makeup work. I gotta say, the makeup work on him was actually really good for what they were trying to accomplish here. And he's really the best actor in the movie, because he has some of the strongest lines in the film. But then by the end, he's just the generic bad guy. And, like, the ways the time machine works makes no sense whatsoever. For example, they have this big climax of the movie where Guy Pearce has to turn on the time machine, and Jeremy Irons is strangling him a la Bart Simpson. And keep in mind that his hands are inside the time machine, and they establish that this time machine should be working at that point. And he should be falling to, and Jeremy Irons' character should be falling to the ground. And basically, like, there we go again. But essentially, what happens here is that he turns on the time machine. Jeremy Irons' character just completely dies because time is moving so fast, but his hands are still inside the time machine. It's just like it makes no sense how this world works, and quite frankly, it doesn't feel like it wants to make any sense whatsoever. It's just kind of like, we're just going to do what we want here because we want to make an action movie here. And really, the directors they had for this, they had Steven Spielberg at one point attached to this, who could probably make this work. They had Brad Sirberling do this, who was a decent director on some movies, Casper, Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, but he left over creative differences. I mean, the possibility is there, but unfortunately, this movie really fails because it didn't know what kind of a tone it wants to set. And when you bring in Gore Verbinski to direct the second half of the final 30 minutes of the movie, it really does show how the film basically just falls apart from what it was trying to accomplish from the beginning. And it's a movie that really, I've come to realize that this film could have been so much better than it had any right to be, but it just doesn't. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody's really ever going to touch this again and try to redo this story the right way. It's like if you get the right people involved and follow the story that H.G. Wells was trying to tell, you could have something really interesting here. But I think people are steering away from it because of how bad this movie turned out to be. And the end result of it is a mess of a film. So much potential really could have gone into it, but it doesn't know what kind of a tone it wants to set. It changes the tone towards the end of the movie when you bring in another director, and it just basically falls apart right from the get-go, and just like you have nothing really to look forward to when it's all said and done. And it's just, yeah, at times there are flashes of promise, but never enough for me to say that this is something you should check out. It's a major letdown on so many levels, and yeah, it's just not a good movie, unfortunately. So yeah, that's the Time Machine for you. Should have been so much better, but it just isn't. So let's see if we can turn the tide around with our last film we have here, and that is Ice Cube and Mike Epps in their first two pairings of 2020, the first of two pairings of 2002, and that is, of course, All About the Benjamins.
Two unlikely partners,
But I'm the boss.
okay, partner. I mean, boss. You the boss. 20 million in stolen diamonds.
Just shoot out the back tire. Who you think I am, Mel Gibson?
24 hours to collect.
Got a plan. Trust me, that wasn't part of the plan. Improvise.
On March 8th.
Look at your hairline. You ain't got a 4-head, you got a 5-head.
It's all about the Benjamins.
I'm getting earrings like Allen Iverson, fool. Put them back.
Starts Friday, March 8th.
So in this movie, Ice Cube plays bounty hunter Buckham Jackson. Literally, his name, the literal spelling is B-U-C-U-M, which it surprises me that they didn't go the route that I thought they were going to with that joke. But what a weird name, Buckham Jackson. But he teams up with this small-time con artist played by Mike Epps named Reggie Wright that he is pursuing an attempt to locate a missing stash of diamonds at a lottery ticket worth millions of dollars. So Buckham and Reggie find themselves in the race to the finish as they embark on an unlikely partnership that should, when it's all said and done, prove beneficial to them both. And it's pretty clear what they're trying to, parody. Not even parody, but, try to do here. It's supposed to be another Lethal Weapon. Excuse me, but more importantly, it's supposed to be kind of like a new Bad Boys. I mean, Bad Boys 2 was right around the corner. Ice Cube and Mike Epps worked well off each other next Friday, and they were going to be in the final film of the Friday series, Friday After Next. But, yeah, this is a pretty lame movie, and I didn't even show you the second trailer for this, which makes this movie even look stupider than this trailer does. So these two old grannies, like who was this movie made for? I mean, it's like, it feels like a film that is trying to be universal appealing to everybody, not just a specific target audience. It felt like a film that just really did not know who it was trying to target, and when they were trying to do what they were trying to do, the film just didn't really turn out the way they wanted to. And it's a shame, because Mike Epps and Ice Cube have a lot of good chemistry together, and they're just shown in their movies that they've done before. Like, the Friday movies are a great example of the good chemistry they have together. Lottery Ticket is an example. Well, they're both in that movie. Jakey Promoters, which is a film that I talked in the past about how I wanted to do a video talking about that one, thinking it was one of those movies that's just like, it's going to be one of those ones where it's going to be one of those so bad it's good movies. It's just not a good movie, period. It's just kind of like, and there wasn't really a whole lot there for me to really get behind. Like, I heard the idea about that movie was that they completed the movie without Ice Cube ever knowing about it, and they were going to do like this big push, but never told Ice Cube that it was just going to go straight to video. And I thought that was going to lead to a potentially really interesting video reacting to that movie. But when I finally watched the movie, there really wasn't enough there for me to get the stuff that I wanted to really get from it. And yeah, so that's why I never did that video, by the way. But this movie in particular, it's like, I got what they were trying to do, but the writing here is not really all that strong. It's a very lazily put together movie, and it's clear that they're trying to copy the Bad Boys formula, the Lethal Weapon formula. They make the joke about, what am I, Mel Gibson? It's just like, this is basically like two young Danny Glovers working together, and that could be funny if you had a good script to work off of, but it just didn't work here. And I like Ice Cube, I like Mike Epps, I like seeing them in movies together, but this is one of those movies where, as much as I like to seeing them together again, the movie itself just really wasn't worth it in the end, and this one's become largely forgettable, even though Shout Factory just put out a deep Blu-ray of it not too long ago. But other than that, though, like, it's not really worth it when it's all said and done. Ice Cube and Mike Epps have been in so much better movies. Watch those movies. Avoid this one like the plague.
into nature. You know that?
I mean, considering that it took him almost 20 years to finally get that damn acorn, I mean, he's not wrong, but hey, that's probably one of the best things about these movies in particular. But this is, of course, Ice Age, the first film from Blue Sky Studios, from 20th Century Fox, their attempt to join Disney and DreamWorks in the computer animation parade. And why not get the company that made the Academy Award-winning short Bunny to do it? And here we are. We have the voices of Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, and Dennis Leary. And the plot of this movie is that it's set during the days of the Ice Age, obviously. The film centers around three main characters: Manny, a no-nonsense woolly mammoth; Sid, a loudmouth ground sloth; and Diego, a sardonic saber-toothed tiger, who come across a human baby and work together to return him to their tribe. Additionally, the film also follows Scrat, a speechless saber-toothed squirrel, who is perpetually searching for a place in the ground to bury his acorn. And like I said, considering that he's had that acorn for almost 20 years now, that thing cannot be good by this point. But I'm putting logic into this, and at least with these films going forward after this film, the logic slowly but surely starts to take a nosedive after a while. But Ice Age was originally intended to be a 2D animated movie for Fox Animation Studios when Don Bluth was running it. However, after that shut down, this became the first film for Blue Sky Studios, and the focus shifted it from making it an action-adventure drama to more of a comedy-oriented one, and brought in several comedic writers to bring the tone down more for a wittier tone. And well, the trailers, it looks like your typical buddy animated comedy and very similar to the first Shrek film. And quite frankly, honestly, you can really definitely see it, because it could have easily been a knockoff of Shrek. There's even moments in this movie in particular where it follows the Shrek formula to a T. But I do like the little twists and turns they throw in there to kind of make it its own unique thing to it, specifically with Gladden, and also with the way that Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, and Dennis Leary come together when they need to. And it actually does find a good enough balance with the story overall to make for a very entertaining film. I think the script does a pretty good job of handling the comedic aspects and the dramatic aspects really well. They mesh it together very nicely. There are some good moments of comedy and drama in this movie. Like, there are some great little moments where, you know, Ray Romano will be looking, the Manny character will be looking at this wall of these woolly mammoth hieroglyphics, if you will, like the things on the rocks, and he'll think back to the time when like a member of his family got killed, and like moments like that when there's no dialogue whatsoever, and it's just them using the animation and the music to perfection. It's done very well. I like the way they handle it, but the voice work overall I think is very well done. These three have a good camaraderie together, and the animation is very dated compared to the other movies, especially the latter films, which it's funny that the animation got so much better with every other passing film, and the story and the comedy went the complete opposite direction, where they weren't as great. But this is a really good movie. I thought it was a ton of fun. I remember watching it as a kid in the theater, really enjoying it, and I think it still holds up very well on a number of different levels. I think when it's very funny, the comedy can work very well. When it's trying to have a heavier storyline, I think it works pretty well. I think it's still very well done. For the time period, it's fine for what it is, and it's definitely no classic by any means necessary, but in terms of like telling an engaging story, having some likable characters, and some animation of the time that works, that definitely feels dated now, I think it works on a number of levels to say that I do recommend it. It's a very enjoyable film, and it's more than worth the watch anytime you watch it. I mean, it really is a ton of fun. It's a really well-made film. I like it a lot. I still like it very much even to this day. But there's still 4 more sequels to go from this. And like I said, the quality goes down in terms of story and comedy, but the animation will get a lot better as we move along with these films. But we'll have to wait another 4 years for that one when we get to the Meltdown. But that is the first Ice Age movie. So let's go ahead and move on to the next film we have here. The day another franchise took place in film history, the launch of the Resident Evil movie franchise.
Welcome to the Umbrella Corporation. The breakthroughs we make today will change your life tomorrow.
I've been a bad, bad girl.
Open the door!
or as most people would like to call it, the day that the Resident Evil franchise went on this depressing low once Paul W.S. Anderson and his wife Milla Jovovich took over. Like, they take the meaning of never work with your spouse and just say, fuck it, we're going to do it anyway. And the results have been mostly terrible movies, and this is definitely one of those movies. This one is loosely based on the Resident Evil franchise, and you have a story where it follows amnesiac heroine Alice, played by Milla Jovovich, and a band of Umbrella Corporation commandos as they attempt to contain the outbreak of the T-virus at a secret underground facility. And obviously it didn't go very well because there's still 5 more films after this to go. So, yeah, it didn't really work out that well. I don't know. Like, to me, the Resident Evil movies, they fail because, A, they clearly get a guy who does not know what he's doing, does not really, he may say that he's a big Resident Evil fan, but if these movies are any indication, these movies do not really show that he is much of a Resident Evil fan. Just like what they were trying to do with a lot of video game movies back then. They weren't getting people who knew the source material, and because of that, a lot of these movies fell apart pretty quickly. It wasn't until well recently, within the last 5-6 years, we finally started to get good video game adaptations, and coincidentally, most of them are family films, like the Angry Birds movies, the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, the Super Mario Brothers movie, Detective Pikachu. I mean, these are all family films, and it's not like somebody can't take this idea of Resident Evil and actually do something new with it, but even that they're screwing up with Welcome to Raccoon City, and they somehow managed to make that one even worse, even though Paul W.S. Anderson is nowhere to be found in that movie, nor is Milla Jovovich. But I've just never been a Milla Jovovich fan. I do not like her as an actress. Every time I see her in something, it's like she's trying to force herself to become the next Sigourney Weaver in Alien. It's like, take me seriously as an action heroine, and just like, she just can't do it. She can't make this intimidating look with this face that she has. And like, there are so many movies like these movies, and the Ultraviolet, and like every movie I see her in, I just can't. I've never seen a good performance from Milla Jovovich, except for The Fifth Element, which came out in '97, and that was almost 30 years ago. But in this, she just really doesn't work for me as Alice. Like, she's not a convincing character. She's just there clearly because she's fucking the director. I mean, that's pretty much what they're doing with these movies. But I mean, none of these characters really are likable per se. You don't really get invested in Michelle Rodriguez or Eric Mabius or Collins or James Purefoy or some of these other actors in here. And it's clear that the movie isn't really taking the source material to T here. They're just watching little clips of the video game and saying, we can write a script around this, even though we have we've never played the actual games in long form. And again, that's been part of the problem with these video game movies back then, is that they don't get people that know the source material very well. And the CG effects don't hold up very well either. Like, you would think that that'd be the one saving grace of this, is that, well, at least the CG effects could still hold up, and nope. $33 million budget, and the CG effects look this bad. I don't know. It just seems like a disaster on so many levels. It's not intriguing. It's not interesting. The cast is not really well assembled. The writing is terrible. The CG effects are awful. You just don't feel anything from it per se. Even the biggest Resident Evil fan would look at this and go, I can't really enjoy this movie, and yeah, it's just not for me. It's just not worth it for me. Like, none of these movies ever got any better. They just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again, and nobody really put them to task to it until it was all said and done. And even then, they're still finding new ways to screw it up. But that's Resident Evil for you. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one we have here, and that is Robert De Niro and Eddie Murphy in the comedy Showtime.
Wrapping up the production take Robert De Niro. I like his instincts. Eddie Murphy. Showtime. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, March.
My God, what a wasted opportunity this was. I mean, this is one of those movies that, on paper, sounds pretty impressive. You got a cast that includes Robert De Niro, Eddie Murphy, Rene Russo, William Shatner making fun of himself. Decent writers on here. The two guys from Smallville who created that show wrote the script for this. And an idea that sounds really, really clever. You have a story here where you have Robert De Niro as an LAPD detective sergeant who cares only about doing his job and nailing crooks, and he has this other police officer played by Eddie Murphy who joins the force as a day job until his acting career took off. And during an undercover drug buy, Mitch was working that Trey botched by calling in for backup and drawing media attention. Mitch's partner is shot with a very exotic 12-gauge automatic weapon. Mitch then shoots the video camera out of the hands of a reporter filming the action when the cameraman refuses to shut it down. Faced with a $10 million lawsuit, the department agrees to let producer Chase Renzi film Mitch's investigation for a new reality TV show and consistently try to make everything more viewer-friendly by changing everything about Mitch's life to fit the stereotypical views of police officers and partners him with Trey. That's an idea that could lead to a lot of comedic potential. Reality shows were kind of starting to become the norm at this point. We had Survivor, we just had The Amazing Race, Big Brother, The Bachelor was about to premiere, American Idol was about to premiere. I mean, reality TV was about to take over. And here you have a movie that could have easily been so clever and so satirical about the buddy cop genre. It could have been like the equivalent to Bowfinger from a few years before, but no, just plays it way too safe. Waste the possible comedic energy of both Robert De Niro and Eddie Murphy and just waste it on lackluster humor that is just so... Like, this is something that CBS would even look at and go, we're funnier than this. And we make some of the most generic-ass sitcoms of all time, but we're funnier than 10 times than what this movie is. And it's just like... It's depressing how low this movie goes in terms of trying to get a good comedy together here. And, like, the pieces are definitely there. The idea is so cleverly put together here from the premise, and it just never capitalizes on it whatsoever. It just goes the safe route. And when you do that, that hurts your movie big time, and just, like, it just completely ruins the ebb and flow of what you're trying to go for here right away. And nothing pissed me off more than when this movie did that. I mean, that made me so mad when this movie did that. It's just like, you motherfuckers. I mean, like, they were so close to getting something incredible out of this, and they just went the half-assed way with it at the end. It's just like, nothing about it works. Like, it's not funny, it's not clever, and it's promising to be satirizing to the buddy cop genre, but it's just another lazy attempt at a buddy cop movie. Like it's trying to make fun of itself, but it's just basically becoming another version of something that's already been done. And it just doesn't work. It's just not that clever. It's not that funny. It's not that engaging. And it really runs too long, even though the movie is an hour and a half long. It drags. And it drags to a point where it's just like, for the love of God, somebody shut this off. I mean, it's that terrible of a movie. Like, it's amazing how low this movie sunk. And just from the fact that they were so close to making something really, really funny, and they can't even do that because they want to play it safe. They don't want to offend anybody, but they just want to do it like this, and it hurts the movie in the long run in a bad, bad way. And I was really upset when this movie didn't work, and it let me down at so many levels, which it probably let a lot of people down on so many levels. But that's unfortunately what we got here with Showtime. Just a complete mess of a comedy in general. So why don't we end the show on a much better note? How about we actually take a look at a good comedy that probably some of you, a good majority of you out there, probably don't even know what it is. It's a movie called Kissing Jessica Stein.
Hi, I'm Charles.
Hi, Jessica.
Skies blue.
So, Charles, what about you?
I don't know, I do okay. Actually, I just met somebody pretty special.
Oh,
Her name's Michelle, and it's early, but,
I thought you were single.
is this supposed to be a setup?
When she walks.
Jessica Stein thought she'd run out of options.
I go out with a lot of girls. A lot. We split the salad, but I think ate a little bit more.
Sorry, I'm so late.
You are right on time. Until she realized
Oh, that's women seeking women.
there was one more thing to consider.
Whenever I thought about lesbianism in the past, I've always said ew. You know, just ew.
She is trying new things.
Who's the guy?
There's no guy. I'm gonna have to go slow, okay? Oh, okay.
You're a terrible liar.
Trust me. There's no guy.
Now,
She's just working off some residual anger from college.
between the man who's perfectly impossible
You guys went to college together?
We dated for a year.
Is everything okay? You don't seem like yourself lately.
You don't either.
and the woman who's possibly perfect,
If we keep going like this, we'll get there in 2 weeks or so.
There's no real rush.
How about 10 days?
10 days is better.
she's losing her mind.
It's not me. It's not me. Do you find me disgusting?
No!
Are
Oh
you
my God, she's hitting? I'm impressed.
To find her heart.
She's a girl, you know? She has thin arms.
I don't know what she sees in her mother. She's flat-chested.
I've kissed a girl.
Oh my God.
Fox Searchlight Pictures presents the movie the Los Angeles Times calls outstanding. Romantic comedy at its sharpest and most sophisticated.
What is it about two women you find so exciting?
The way they touch.
Really? How do they touch?
What I'm wondering right about now is, do you want to have dinner with me tomorrow night?
Everyone wants to be kissing Jessica Stein.
What does your therapist say about all this?
Oh, I can never tell my therapist. Why not? Because it's private.
This is a really, really damn good movie. It's one of those movies that I came across out of the blue. I'd heard some small things about it, and I saw it at I think I saw it at a CD warehouse on DVD, and I picked it up. It was only like $10. And I thought, maybe I'll check it out. If it doesn't work, I could just go back there and get another DVD at some point. But I'm glad I did, because this movie really is really well done. You have Jessica Stein, played by Jennifer Westfeldt, who's actually married to John Hamm, as you see in the trailer there. She's a single, straight, successful journalist, part of a bonded Jewish family living in New York City, who finds herself not as straight as she thought she was when she meets and begins an intense friendship with a career woman named Helen Cooper, played by Heather Jurgensen. And it ultimately leads to romance. And there's also a little bit of a love triangle with a guy that she used to date. And you wonder where the film is going to go from there. But luckily, the film goes to a level where it's really a good, fun, lighthearted comedy. But it also uses a same-sex marriage in a same-sex relationship, I should say, in a very powerful light. And it's a really well-done film. Apparently, from what I remember, this was based off of a scene that these two did in a 1997 off-Broadway play called Lipstick. And like I said, it's one of the early film appearances of both John Hamm and also Michael Showalter. But you also have some notable names in there, like Jackie Hoffman, somebody you've seen in a lot of TV work. You also see, who else? Idina Menzel also has a cameo in here as a bridesmaid. A lot of legitimately good talent in this movie. And like I said, it does a very good job of making this relationship between Jessica Stein and the two people that she has a connection with, the guy that she used to date, and this woman that she kind of feels like that maybe there's an opportunity for a relationship there. It's done in a very positive light, and nothing about the movie ever feels forced. Like, I know when this movie came out, there was a lot of people that thought that, especially from the LGBT community, that thought that it didn't deal with the death of being openly gay, but it was still praised for the way they handled the movie very well here. And this is back in 2001, where it was kind of hard to make gay and bisexuality and work without going a little bit too stereotypical. I mean, Will and Grace, In Living Color, like there was a lot of shows that did these gay jokes that most of the time it was gay people were either flaming or they really weren't really portrayed as as a normal person would be portrayed as. And while there had been definitely some movies where they actually did make it work in the past, around this time it felt like they were trying to okay, we got to put gay people in a better light here. And I think this movie is a really good example of that. And it just makes you wonder why Jennifer Westfeldt never really had a successful career after this. We all saw what happened with John Hamm after this point. Like, she's only been in a couple of shows every once in a while. She'd show up on Grey's Anatomy or on This Is Us or Girls or even on Younger. But she hasn't really reached that star power level like she had, like a lot of people around is in that same area would have been in. Like, she's not like a Jennifer Aniston or a Julia Roberts, where she starts her career off through television and then slowly but surely becomes the movie actress that we know her as. And with her, it's just kind of like she's just been kind of doing like little things. She's been sticking mostly on the indie circuit. She made a really great underrated film from 2012, Friends with Kids, which I actually really like a lot, and I do recommend checking that one out. That's another great underrated movie. And the movie overall is very funny. Like I said, it works because you like the relationships between Westfeldt and Jurgensen, and also Westfeldt and Scott Cohen, who plays the guy that she may or may not still have an interest for, even though they didn't date for a while. But the movie really is very solid stuff. It's a very well-made film. It's a very funny film. You do like a lot of the chemistry between the leading actress and the two people involved in throughout the course of the film. It's a very fun, lighthearted comedy, and it works very well. It's a very creative movie. It does a lot to really entertain people, and it's a really well-made film, and one that I don't think a lot of people really know about. And, I mean, I think this is one you really should check out. If you want to see a movie where you have gay people being seen in a positive way that doesn't feel like it's being forced onto you, or something on the obscure levels of some other TV shows and movies around the time, Kissing Jessica Stein definitely is that movie that makes it work so well. I highly recommend checking it out. It's a very well-made film, a very underrated gem. Check this movie out. You will not be disappointed by it.
On March 22nd, only he can lead his old enemy.
They're no longer top of the food chain.
Our forces are ready to fight.
You've taken orders from me to fight a new breed of terror. Dane Walker. Wesley Snipes. You do not know who you are. Blade 2. Rated R. Starts Friday, March 22nd.
It all starts at 8/7 Central, Fox Friday. I'm sorry, that's Joe Cipriano, who's a really good voiceover announcer, and actually, he's doing the voiceover for all three of the movies that we have here, so this episode should really be called the Joe Cipriano episode, because his name's all over the place, but I'm sorry, his voice is all over the place, I should say, but I'm sorry. As cool of a voice as that guy has, every time he says it in that way, I keep thinking back to the days when he was voicing the Fox promos, and all that's the way he would usually do the promos on there. It's just like, here's the schedule, and then he's like, at 8/7 Central, Fox Sunday. Like, I feel like with a lot of movies that he's done voiceovers for, you could put that, you would swear that they were things on the Fox schedule that night. I mean, Resident Evil had a TV spot last week that was very similar to a Fox promo, really, when you look at it, but I don't know, I thought that was kind of amusing. But Blade 2, let's talk about Blade 2, because this is the sequel to the original Blade from 1998. Wesley Snipes is in this. This is directed by Guillermo del Toro and written by David S. Goyer. And in this sequel, you have Blade, once again played by Snipes, in his continuing effort to protect humans from vampires, finding himself in a fierce battle against a group of mutant vampires who seek to commit global genocide of both vampire and human races. Blade and his human allies are coerced into joining forces with a special elite group of vampires. You also have Chris Christopherson returning from the first movie. Ron Perlman joins the cast in this one, and also Lenora Valera from Arrested Development. Norman Reedus, who would later go on to The Walking Dead. Luke Goss is in this as well. Thomas Kretschum, who you would later see in King Kong. Just a really solid cast overall here. And the first real wide approach for Guillermo del Toro to get his name out there, because of course, he would follow this up with Hellboy and then Children of Men. No, he didn't follow it up with Children of Men. That's Alfonso Cuarón. But he went on to become a very prolific director after this movie came out. It was a big hit overall. It actually made more money than the first film did. And rightfully so, because, well, Blade 2 is a much better movie than the first Blade was. Not to say that the first Blade movie was bad and all, but this does what a really good sequel should do. It should up the ante. It should show off more of the storyline, expand the universe, and actually have a really compelling storyline you can follow. And I think this movie does a very good job of handling that. The movie is very, very well made. Wesley Snipes really shows that he was pretty much made to star in this role. And he really is the main thing that's keeping the movie afloat. And it's a shame that Blade Trinity ended it kind of on a sour note. But we'll eventually get to that one down the road. But Blade 2 was really a great film that really took more chances. It upped the ante from the first film. The visuals, I think, look a lot better. The action sequences overall are very good. There's a lot of great atmospheric aspects to it that Guillermo del Toro brings to the table. I mean, this is the guy that had just done The Devil's Backbone in the fall. And it's just a really damn good movie. I mean, it's a really fun film. You get so invested in what's going on with everyone in this, and you get invested in the spectacle, the visual aspects of the film. I mean, it's a really solid film that is definitely a step above the original film in particular. It has a lot of things about it that make it stand out more than the first film does. It's definitely the best of the Blade movies, and it's not even close by comparison. I mean, the first Blade movie is great. The second one, I think, is the topper, and then Blade Trinity kind of ends on a sour note. But again, we'll delve into that one in a couple of years when we get to Blade Trinity. But Blade 2 is a really good film. I highly recommend it. And even if you weren't as keen on the first film as most people were, you can definitely find a lot to appreciate with Blade 2. And you also get to see a sneak preview of what Guillermo del Toro would eventually bring to the table with many of his other films he would make after this film. Not much more to say, man. Blade 2 really is a better better movie than the first Blade is. I think it is definitely the best of the Blade movies by a large comparison, and one you should definitely check out. So that's Blade 2. Now let's go ahead and get into controversy time. Let's take a look at Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial back in theaters for its 20th anniversary with its infamous controversial additions that they add to the film.
In March 2002, Steven Spielberg's masterpiece returns to theaters everywhere.
What's he doing? E.T.
Phone home.
With enhanced visual effects, never-before-seen footage, and a digitally remastered soundtrack, Steven Spielberg presents the 20th anniversary of E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
So yeah, we finally get to talk about this, and you know, Steven Spielberg is usually very careful with how he remasters his movies, and it was mostly because of what happened with E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I don't think I need to say too much more about this movie, which I've already talked about as one of my favorite films of all time. It's still my favorite film of Steven Spielberg's. It's still very much in the top 15 of my favorite films of all time, but back then, in 2002, when they announced that this was going to come out for the film's 25th anniversary, it was announced that the movie was heading back into theaters with not only a new digitally remastered audio track, but enhanced visual effects and never-before-seen footage. And they were advertising this like crazy. I remember this being advertised back in 2002. There was like a great Toys R Us commercial with Jeffrey the Giraffe and E.T. There was a lot of specials on TV promoting this. NBC had a special where they reunited the entire cast and they talked about their memories of making the film. And, it got everybody so excited to see this on the big screen again. And I was disappointed that I never got to see it in theaters because I would have loved to have seen it. And this was before I even knew about the controversial things they did to it. So much so that I didn't hear too much about it until South Park went ahead and did a ton of parodies of it, of the E.T. re-release in one of their episodes when they had it in the summertime, basically making fun of the fact that they had, the guns were replaced by walkie-talkies, and, they parody the E.T. trailer, and then they followed up with, coming this summer, it's the movie that changed America, Saving Private Ryan, the re-release, with all the guns replaced by walkie-talkies, and all the guns were replaced with walkie-talkies during the opening scene where they're going at each other, and it's just people dying from walkie-talkies shooting them, and just like, it runs throughout the course of the episode, and, South Park has taken a lot of jabs at Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, especially with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, that's one of the few times I really do not agree with South Park on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's not that bad of a movie, but this episode in particular was incredibly funny. I loved it, and the E.T. re-release didn't have much of an impact on me because I had yet to see the new effects, so finally, the movie came out on DVD during the holiday season. I got it for Christmas. I finally sat down and watched the new version. And again, I didn't feel anything differently except that I felt the new cut didn't need the extra footage. The effects do bother me a little bit. Didn't bother me too. I should say that I scratched that. The effects didn't really bother me too much. Neither did the audio. So for the longest time, I just kind of let it slide and just let it be, kind of the thing that kind of just something that was just like, it's not a big deal for me. It wasn't until I finally got to the Blu-ray release in 2012 where you had the original cut of the movie remastered, and I'll tell you what, it may have taken 10 years to finally see what everyone was talking about because, man, there's definitely a lot of differences between the first DVD release and the newer Blu-ray release, and it definitely shows if you compare the two. I mean, it basically goes without saying, watching the 2002 cut at age 23 was much different than me watching it at age 13, so I could see the notable differences, but man, Spielberg messed up pretty badly here. I mean, the visual effects, the changing of them, it's not a bad idea. E.T. doesn't look that bad in CG, but at the same time, there's definitely a major difference between CG and practical. I mean, you can look at so many examples here, like E.T. getting drunk, which was one of the great scenes in the movie where E.T. gets drunk and uses the speak and spell, and for some reason he and Elliot are connected, so Elliot's in class and he looks like he's drunk. When you look at the original cut and then you look at the CG version, practical effects just work better in that scenario because of the cleaner, than having the cleaner CG effects, like I said, because E.T. looks fine in CG, but the practical effects just work better in those cases because in those scenes you could tell that he's right there in the original version, unlike in the 2002 version. Now, there's definitely a lot of other things in the re-release that I can easily bring up, but you can, in particular, there's a couple of shots in the 2002 cut where they are pretty interesting. The one that sticks out to me the most is that where there's a scene where E.T. is running to the spaceship and is flying away, and I thought that was actually a really good use of the updated CG. It's actually one of the few things from this particular version that I liked and felt that held up better in the original version. Not the original version was bad in particular, but it just looks like it looks weirder than him running away. I like the idea of E.T. running, trying to reach the ship, even though it's going up in the air, and I think that's more effective with him than just him standing in the trees, looking at it as it flies away. Like he looks like he's not even there in that particular scene in particular. But I like what they did with the re-release. I thought that was one of the cooler things I actually liked about that one. But then you got to talk about the big thing that everyone was talking about: the guns being replaced by walkie-talkies. And let's be honest, there's no way to defend this decision. Of all the decisions that Spielberg has made in his entire career, this has to be the dumbest decision he's ever done. And I get it. 9/11 had just happened a couple months ago, and you wanted to be a little more politically correct, but at the same time, there's nothing threatening about walkie-talkies there than there are with guns literally about to kill this thing. I mean, where's the tension from the walkie-talkie? I mean, you better stop or I'll call in somebody. Like, if you watch the original film, the reason why that scene does not work with the walkie-talkies is because you could see Ellie and the Kier's fear in their eyes when they see these guns. Like, they're fearful for their lives, and they're likely going to die until E.T. is able to get him and the rest of the kids up in the air before they can get to him. That's a more powerful scene than watching the kids getting scared of fucking walkie-talkies. I mean, it's the worst thing that you could have done, and everybody knew it was a mistake. And, yeah, Spielberg was certainly... He thought certain shots were not really that great, so he had Industrial Light and Magic come in to modify the shots, you know, because he did it with Star Wars, with the original... George Lucas did it with the Star Wars movies, and nobody really seemed to be bothered by it. They actually added scenes in particular where... Like, there was a scene where E.T. takes a bath, and Gertie tells Mary that Elliot went to the forest on Halloween. Mary's dialogue during the off-screen argument with Michael about his Halloween costume were altered to replace the word terrorist and hippie. That was another thing that South Park made fun of. It's funny because Spielberg didn't even add the scene that features Harrison Ford in it as a cameo, feeling that they reshaped the film too drastically. Which is funny because Harrison Ford's appearance is too much for him, but adding walkie-talkies instead of guns and replacing the words terrorist and hippie was too much for them. And, yeah, like, it just really, you could just tell that Spielberg knew he messed up, and unlike George Lucas, where he basically is refusing to release the original cuts of Star Wars, Spielberg publicly disavowed the 20th anniversary cut, and that's why on the Blu-ray that came out, the first one in 2012, we eventually got the regular version of the film, and I'm glad that he came around to it. It's like, you got to give Steven Spielberg a lot more credit for that than somebody like George Lucas, who just refuses to release he refuses to release the original Star Wars cuts. I mean, everyone would love to see them. Everyone really would like to watch those movies again the way they were meant to be seen, but instead of having to go find them on bootlegs. I mean, I have a bootleg Blu-ray of the specialized editions that I got at a Comic-Con a couple years ago. And it's because nobody really wants it. It's because George Lucas doesn't want to do it, because he and David Zaslav are apparently very, very pitty. There's no other way to say it, but I am glad that Steven Spielberg did eventually come around to it. And yeah, the E.T. 20th anniversary cut is really bad. There are a few things about it that I do kind of like, including a couple newer shots that actually look better in the original film. Mainly early on in the movie, but it's definitely an inferior cut to an already perfect movie that could have had some merit to it, but gets so messed up because of the changes made. I mean, I've talked about it before. I just did a video not too long ago on the Reviewing Network Talks about with this film. It's still one of my favorite movies of all time. It's still my favorite Steven Spielberg movie, and I really love this movie so much. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this, not only because of this movie coming out, was that when I talked about it over on the website, I actually did a blog talking about this. Freeform was playing it on TV during Thanksgiving of 2020, and it made me really want to talk about it, because the Freeform version that they played on TV as of late is the regular version. The only reason to look for a copy of the 2002 film is so you could easily compare the two versions and realize that, yeah, the original version is much better. There's no real reason to say that you should watch the 2002 version and expect a much better film, because you simply will not. But it's just an interesting little piece of history that Steven Spielberg himself has disavowed and said that, hey, I'm not going to do this again. And I'm glad to see that he didn't do that. I mean, Like, he's at least acknowledging his mistakes, which, unlike some people, that actually is really cool of him. And that's why I can give a lot of more respect to Steven Spielberg than I would to somebody like George Lucas. And, yeah, so not much more to say about this particular version. I mean, E.T., the classic original version is far superior than this particular version. If this eventually gets re-released in the theaters one day, I would like to see it again on the big screen. Hopefully it will still be the original version, but, yeah, I dodged a bullet when we didn't get to go see this in theaters in 2002. It's funny because a year later on ABC, they actually played the 20th anniversary version. And I gotta say this, like, that particular version of E.T. that they played on TV then, you would have thought that would have been the first time E.T. was ever on television, because they set that up as, like, a major television event. Like, it starts off with the trailer for the 20th anniversary, and then it follows that up with a little segment from My Wife and Kids, where Damon Wayans' young daughter is scared of E.T., and, like, they were setting this up as, like, this big event. Like, even though E.T. had been on television several times in the over 10 years since the first time it aired on TV, it's just like, wow. It's just like I miss those days when, like, movies on television used to be like big events like that. And sadly, because TV networks think that it's just better to make cheap reality shows, stupid reality shows, instead of actually showing movies, those ways will never be the same again. It just made me realize how much I miss old television like that, old broadcast TV like that. But wanted to bring that up there. So that's probably the longest I've ever talked about a movie on this particular show, but E.T.'s 20th anniversary has a lot of interesting things to say about it, nevertheless. But so let's go ahead and wrap the show up by taking a look at our last movie that we have here, and that is the comedy Sorority Boys.
Your fraternity forced you to join a sorority.
Yeah, very funny.
Would you?
Hi. Oh my god.
If you had to get sensitive,
Let's share.
should you?
Well, I'm addicted to porn. Hello, bye.
Okay, I think we just need to stop right there. I think you get the gist of what this movie is. A group of college boys who are dressed up as girls in order to prove their innocence for a crime they didn't commit from a fraternity. The trailer basically says it. If your fraternity is being forcing you to join a sorority, and you've got Barry Watson from Seventh Heaven, Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville, and Harlan Williams, because those three guys clearly are people that should be in college. And yeah, the rest of that trailer is pretty much jokes that you pretty much expect to come. And the sad thing about this whole thing is that this is directed by one of the guys who wrote for The Simpsons, and not the newer seasons of The Simpsons, the classic seasons of The Simpsons, the first 4 seasons of the show, Wally Wolodarski. And yeah, talk about a really, really bad film to direct on. I mean, luckily he's made much better choices since then, doing stuff like The Oblongs and being in a lot of Wes Anderson films. He wrote the critically underrated films The Rocker, Monsters vs. Aliens. I mean, he's done a lot of better stuff than this film, and it's just a terrible movie. It's trying to be the Tootsie or Mrs. Doubtfire for the college circuit, and you know which direction it's going to go. You know exactly where they're going to take you. You know it's going to be that kind of a film that's trying to be the new Animal House. It even has 2 people from Animal House in it, Stephen Furst and John Vernon, and it's just like, why are you guys here, man? Like, what are you guys doing in this movie? What is anybody doing in this movie? And like I said, Barry Watson, Michael Rosenbaum, Harlan Williams. Harlan Williams was 40 years old when this movie came out. Michael Rosenbaum was 30. And Barry Watson was like was closing in on 28 years old when this came out. And these guys are supposed to be in college. Like, that really should tell you everything that's wrong with the movie there. But the jokes aren't funny. I mean, maybe if Wally Wolodarski actually had a hand in the script, maybe he could have made it much funnier than it actually is. But no. Everything about this movie is just bad. Like, you know how it's going to work out. The girls are going to find out what the boys are actually doing. There's going to be this third act breakup. Everything's going to go to pieces, and you're going to be bored by hell of it because you know exactly what the hell they're doing in this particular situation here. And it's like, what is the point? What is the reason why I'm here? Like, why am I watching this? Like, nothing about this makes any sense whatsoever, and everybody involved has much more talent and deserves a much better movie than this. This is a terrible film, unfunny, nothing about it works whatsoever. You could pretty much predict everything that's going to happen. It's a bad movie. It's a really, really bad movie, and sadly, this is not the worst cross-dressing movie we get in 2002. Wait until we get to Joanna Man, because that'll make this movie look like Tootsie by comparison. This will make this movie look like the equivalent to something like either Tootsie, Mrs. Doubtfire, or Some Like It Hot. I mean, Joanna Man is that bad of a movie, but we're not quite there yet. We still have a couple months to go before that. But, yeah, avoid sorority boys like the plague, please.
Tell me about it.
Take what you want and get out of my house! What we want is in that room.
They're coming in here, aren't they?
From director David Fincher, Jodie Foster, Panic Room.
What is he doing?
They're locking us in.
Rated R. Starts in theaters everywhere March 29th.
I mean, the trailer kind of pretty much explains the movie, but you have Jodie Foster as a recently divorced woman and her daughter, Sarah, played by Kristen Stewart, having bought a new home in New York City. When they tour around the mansion, they come across the Panic Room, a room so secure that no one can get in. So you have three burglars that come in, played by Forest Whitaker, Jared Leto, and Dwight Yoakam, which is a weird combination when you really think about it. So Jodie Foster's character and her daughter make it into the Panic Room, but all the troubles don't stop there, as the criminals know where she is, and what they require the most is in the house is in that very room. And this movie knows how to create tension. This is a movie that I've really come to admire more and more ever since I saw it. Because first time I saw it, I was just kind of like, all right, that was kind of amusing, but nothing too significant. But the more you really look at this movie, and the more you look at the way that they actually put this together, like, it really looks impressive the way they handle this, because this film actually uses CGI to create the illusion of the film's camera moving through the house's rooms, and it's done in a way where, you gotta remember, this is still 2002, and while we were using practical effect, more CG in movies, like, it's impressive that the way they were able to use it in this particular fashion, where it doesn't feel like it's fake. Like, you can tell that in some way they actually did this with a camera, even though it was done through a computer. And funny thing about this movie is that Nicole Kidman was actually original cast in this, but she had to leave because she was having aggravations from a previous injury. But she's actually in the movie as a cameo, as one of the voices for one of the characters. I guess there's a character in the movie when he gets a phone call, and it's actually Nicole Kidman doing the voice. So it's kind of cool they actually let her back in this movie in some way, shape, or form, even though it's not technically as the main lead. But Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart really work very well, and you get to see that Kristen Stewart can actually be a really good actress. The Twilight movies basically just went to show you that the movies were just bad because not even the actors that they had in there could save that movie. I mean, think about it. Kristen Stewart has proven she's a better actress than the Twilight movies have. Robert Pattinson has proved that. Anna Kendrick has proved that. Taylor Lautner, not so much, mostly because he's been doing nothing but bad Adam Sandler movies since leaving the Twilight film. So that should pretty much tell you that, okay, maybe not everybody in that got out of there unscathed yet. Taylor Lautner's probably not that great of an actor to begin with, but we're talking about a completely different thing altogether. But the weird thing about this is that is the weirdest pairing ever. Forest Whitaker, Jared Leto, Dwight Yoakam. These are three very different people who are supposed to be working together as burglars. It's just like, it really does not make a whole lot of sense, but in the movie, it kind of works to the film's advantage. And like I said, David Fincher creates a lot of great tension with this film. There's a lot of great moments where you really don't know how the hell these people are going to get out of the situation that they're in. And the film does a fantastic job of keeping you on the edge of your seat all throughout the film. I mean, it's really well done how they handle this. And you could definitely tell that Fincher took a lot of inspiration from classic Hitchcock. I mean, from the opening title sequence alone, it feels like something out of Rear Window. That's how incredible the visuals in this movie look. The way the film looks is impressive. And you can definitely tell that there's a lot of homages to what Alfred Hitchcock did in the past, and it definitely shows it here. It just shows how the greatness of David Fincher as a filmmaker as a whole. And to come off of Fight Club and then do a movie like this is really impressive stuff. It's a very solid film. Very good tension-filled movie with a lot of great performances all around. Visually, it looks incredible. It's a really fantastic film. I give this movie a lot of credit for doing what it was able to do. And it's David Fincher, man. David Fincher does not usually make a really bad movie, with the exception of his first film he ever did. But other than that, though, he's been rock solid ever since then. I mean, Seven, Fight Club, now Panic Room, and we're just getting started with him because he's got more great movies coming up down the line here that we're still going to take a look at. But Panic Room is a winner. It's an incredible film. Can't recommend this one enough. So with that said, let's move on to the next movie, Disney's latest sports film, and that is The Rookie.
He's a small-town science teacher, but a simple bat is about to change his life forever.
You start winning, you try out for the major leagues.
All right. For his team.
It's your turn, coach.
And for his family.
I think you should do this.
One man's extraordinary journey is about to begin.
Yeah, bring the heat.
Oh my God! Dennis Quaid, The Rookie.
Jimmy, come on, you're up. Just a second.
I'm not doing it.
Rated G. Starts Friday, March 29th.
But it's G-rated. I mean, it's not going to sell to anybody because it's rated G. I mean, that's just how the way the world works now, I guess. I mean, of course, I'm just kidding, because this is back in the day when the G rating actually meant something. I mean, I don't know. I've talked about this long enough. I've done videos talking about the rating system and how it's so screwed up, but I digress. Let's talk about The Rookie, which was actually the first sports film after Disney made Remember the Titans, and it kind of became a tradition to have a new sports film from Disney every couple of years, because after this we'd have Miracle, and then following that Invincible, Glory Road. Most of them were pretty good movies, but in this film in particular, it's based on the true story of Jim Morris, who debuted in Major League Baseball at age 35, and has Dennis Quaid as Morris, who's a Texas high school chemistry teacher and coaches on the school's baseball team. He's always loved baseball as a way of motivating his players. He agrees to go on a professional tryout if they win the championship. He once had aspirations to become a professional baseball player, but an injury brought that to an end. Sure enough, the 39-year-old father of three finds himself at a camp for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, and he somehow seems to have regained his pitching arm, as easily throwing a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Signed to a contract he holds in the minor leagues while his supportive wife stays home raising their children. He soon finds himself called up to the big club and pitching for Tampa, which is in Texas, playing the Rangers. And this is based off of a true story, and kind of falls into predictable, typical sports drama territory. I mean, it's pretty much a similar storyline to something like Remember the Titans. It's an underdog story, but the performances overall are really good and do carry the weight of the movie. Dennis Quaid, I think, is very good in the film. You also have Rachel Griffith from 6 Feet Under, Jay Hernandez, Brian Cox, a young Angus T. Jones, pre-Two and a Half Men. I mean, it's a very entertaining and heartfelt story that doesn't really force the emotions onto you. It makes for a very enjoyable movie. And like I said, it's a rated G movie that is really could be made for adults nowadays. Like, it would still get it would get a PG rating nowadays, but the fact that it got a G rating is pretty impressive to think about. It just goes to show you how the G rating used to be back in 2002 compared to now in 2024. I mean, it's just, again, but that's a topic up for another time. If you want to go check out the video I did for that, I'll put a link down below. But yeah, bottom line, the rating system is pretty screwed up, pretty much. But The Rookie is a good movie, though. I do highly recommend checking it out. I mean, it's a generic sports drama, but the performances and the storyline, I think, are very interesting enough to carry the load of the film to make it something that's worth recommending. It's not another Remember the Titans, but it's a good film nonetheless. So with that said, let's move on to our next movie, and that is Clock Stoppers.
Imagine the power to stop time. No way. You could impress your friends.
That you watch is off the hook. Yeah, that's funny, Zach. That's real funny. I'm gonna call my friends on you, man.
Get the last laugh.
There's that woman who's always giving me parking tickets.
Oh, perfect.
No.
And still find time. I want that watch to save the world.
Well, you heard the man.
Clock Stoppers, rated PG, starts today.
A movie that, if you didn't have the Nickelodeon logo at the beginning there, you probably wouldn't have even known that this was a Nickelodeon movie. But we have Clock Stoppers here. Clock Stoppers is a film that's directed by Jonathan Frakes, who had done the last two Star Trek movies, Star Trek Insurrection, which was not that great, but Star Trek First Contact, which was an amazing film. He mixes laughs with thrills in the sci-fi adventure film, with Jesse Bradford playing a kid, an ordinary teenager, who suddenly obtains extraordinary powers when he stumbles upon a mysterious wristwatch-type device that can literally stop time in its track. And basically, as they say in the movie, time isn't really stopping. Everything's just moving really, really fast. And sometimes the way they kind of play that out, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. most of the time you do kind of get a good sense of it throughout the course of the film. But it's the perfect gadget to impress Francesca, played by Paula Garces, who was of Dangerous Minds and most well known to many people, including myself, as John Cho's girlfriend and later wife in Harold and Kumar. And she's the beautiful new foreign exchange student at school, which she was nearly 30 years old at the time. I mean, kind of like with last week with Sorority Boys, like they try really hard to get these 25 to 30-year-olds to make you think that they're either in college or high school, and I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't work out that well, but I digress. But let's get back to the plot here. But to those more passionately familiar with the incredible timepiece, a hapless scientist played by Fred Stewart and a sinister boss played by Kyle Reese himself, Michael Biehn, the ultimate power of the entire world literally lies in the hand of whoever possesses this amazing apparatus. They want it back at any cost, and that's when Zack and Francesca find themselves unwillingly swept into a thrilling high-tech race against time. And this is a concept that's been done over and over again in TV, but never with the budget of a motion picture before. And it works for the most part. It's a very interesting concept that could make for a very interesting film, and a good film in general, and I think the movie does that very well. The young cast does work very well off each other, even if you can't buy the fact that these are clearly supposed to be high schoolers. It's funny because French Stewart is usually seen as the goofy one with his work on Third Rock from the Sun, but he has a more laid-back role in this movie than we're used to seeing. It says something when Michael Biehn is the one who's more over the top in a movie than French Stewart is. I mean, that's incredibly hard to top, but sure enough, that's exactly what happens in here. The effects when the characters are frozen in time still hold up very well after 20 plus years, and for the time it works. When you see the main characters interacting with the frozen timeline, it's impressive how they blend together, and it does work very well in the scenes when it needs to. It has some corniness too, like the music is clearly late 90s, early 2000s stuff. I mean, there's Blink-182, there's a bunch of songs in this movie that clearly are of the time period. It definitely does have its flaws to it. Like, you could definitely tell if Jonathan Frakes had more control over some scenes when Nickelodeon had control over what other scenes they could put into this, such as the lackluster bullies, which Michael Biehn is more of a bully than the bullies that are actually bullying the main characters in here, and a bizarrely ridiculous club scene in which you have Zack and Francesca trying to help their friend Meeker, which is already weird enough on its own end, by slowing down time to make it seem like Meeker is doing these crazy dance moves, even though the watch isn't supposed to make people invisible, or at least they didn't establish that before. Plus, in actuality, Meeker probably would have his brain splattered all over the place in this case, but not in this movie, which, yeah, there are a lot of flaws in this movie that ding it a lot, but there are things about it that I do really like. It does manage to keep you thoroughly entertained with its intriguing premise, a good cast, and even the ridiculously over-the-top moments get some good laughs out of you. I mean, if you take it for what it is, you can enjoy it on that aspect in particular, and at least it's more fun than the last thing that Frakes had his hands on, which was Insurrection, which is easily one of the worst Star Trek movies, if not the worst Star Trek movie ever. But Clockstoppers, I think, is fun. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, which is ridiculously over the top, alright, and very polarizing. Let's talk about Danny DeVito's latest film, Death to Smoochie.
Director Danny DeVito comes a movie that Jeffrey Lyons called the nuttiest, nuttiest comedy since Get Shorty. Death to Smoochie, rated R. Starts Friday.
This thing cost $50 million and brought in only $8 million. One of the biggest bombs in Warner Brothers history, and yet it was not the biggest bomb of that year for Warner Brothers, which, wait until we get to Pluto Nash, that is, that's a different animal on its own right. But the trailer there kind of sums it up for you. You have Robin Williams as this disgraced former children's television host who's attempting to sabotage his replacement, played by Edward Norton, with his character Smoochie the Rhino. Also in the movie, Catherine Keener, director Danny DeVito is in here as well as Jon Stewart. Adam Resnick, who wrote the Addams Family movies, wrote the script for this, and it's a very polarizing film. It's a film that you either hate it or you either love it, and it definitely has had that cult following, kind of like what Danny DeVito's last movie did with Hoffa and Matilda. Both of those had cult followings after they were not big successes at the time, but I mean, it really depends on your ideas of how you handle dark comedy. I mean, it definitely has a lot of dark elements to it. Robin Williams is having the time of his life, and this you can clearly see. And it's a very bizarre movie. Not just in the way it's presented, but story-wise, but the way it's shot. Like, there are shots in this movie that don't make a whole lot of sense. Like, there's this, in the very early on in the movie, Jon Stewart's talking to these network executives, and the way the scene is shot out, I don't know if they're trying to accomplish that Jon Stewart's supposed to be this little guy, and the guys and the people sitting across from him are like big guys, because he's small, and the guys he's talking to are like taller than him, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it really feels odd. And Danny DeVito can do this type of stuff, but I don't know what was going on with this particular film. It really didn't feel like he had a clear idea of what he was trying to accomplish with the shots in this, because there are parts of the movie where you have people who are supposed to be in the shadows, and then the very next scene you can easily see him, but then they go back to being in the shadows again. It's just like, what's even the point of that? Like, the movie definitely is very odd, to say the least, and there are things about it that make no sense whatsoever. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff about it that does make it a little bit fun, and a little bit on the darker comedy spectrum. I mean, there's a great moment where, Smoochie has this big concert somewhere, and the where they show it at, it's really the biggest laugh in the movie, because it just comes out of nowhere, and the way they built this up, it's just like, it's incredibly brilliant how they handle this. And little flashes of promise in this movie, and the chaotic performance of Robin Williams, I think, really ups this movie to a level where I would say I enjoyed it. But it's definitely one where you're really going to go into it, and you're either going to hate it, or you're either going to love what they're trying to accomplish here. And I can't say everything about it works, but man, I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun film. Definitely not one of Danny DeVito's better movies, but it's got its elements to it that makes it fun to watch. So I recommend it on that level. But again, if you watch it after I say you should check it out, I wouldn't be surprised if you actually hated it, because it's a film that's definitely very polarizing. Like I said, you're either going to love it, you're either going to hate it. That's just how Death to Smoochie works.